Well, folks, thanks so much for joining in today and joining the growing number of people in Canada and the U.S. and in other places who are zeroing in on day-to-day news with Stockwell Day. We try and get you the news stories that are the main items in our own country and around the world, save you some time from having to do that, and also bringing insights that you may not see in mainstream media. They don't always cover the points and the stories behind the stories. So jumping right in, we see the Prime Minister of Canada, what he's been doing over the last couple months in a very vigorous way is traveling to as many countries as possible. And that gets lots of great shots in terms of, coming off the plane and walking along the long lines of military with heads of states. Very impressive. And I'm not diminishing him for doing that. It's always good to have international relations. But when you do the announcements about what you've accomplished, you should also acknowledge that there were maybe some things already in place. For instance, in his recent trip to India, completely overlooking the fact that under previous Prime Minister Harper, strong relations were reestablished with India after, in fact, under the previous Liberals, they had eroded considerably. The new Prime Minister, Modi, was welcomed in when he became Prime Minister. And when I was Minister of International Trade, we opened a trade office in Gujarat, the province of Gujarat, very entrepreneurial area of India, lots of good opportunities for trade and business. And that was done, that office was opened actually over the objections of many in what was called Department of Foreign Affairs then. So we should see from the Prime Minister the actual concrete results of what was accomplished there. He's being accused of just sort of globetrotting and getting the headlines. I think he is trying, but you know what? There should be some proof in the pudding, so let's please take a look at that. It should also be acknowledged that we started, before the Liberals ever showed up, started rejuvenating with India the fact that they have a nuclear program, which way back was started with the Canadian CANDU reactors, and our maintenance people and hundreds and thousands of jobs actually go to the refurbishing of those. Efforts were made then. So please, let's get updated reports. What's new in terms of these various trips, if there's real breakthroughs being made. There's an ongoing push for a guaranteed income for everybody, guaranteed annual income. That always sounds good. It sounds so appealing. Hey, who wouldn't like an income guaranteed for life since from the time you're 18 years old and onward? And now the latest to hop in is the National Farmers Union, which is a strongly represented by some in the agriculture community. It has a deep socialist past, and it's pushing also for a national guaranteed income for all farmers. When way back in the 90s, when I took my first trip to Ukraine, and this was as it was just trying to break out of the Soviet mold, we met with many in the farming community there, and they were telling us how farms that would be, we would call, let's say, a one-section farm, run by a farmer and his wife and maybe one or two kids. The same size farms throughout the Soviet Union would sometimes have to be run by dozens, if not hundreds of people. And because they were guaranteed an income, no matter what kind of crop they got, if something broke down, a tractor broke down, or there was something that needed to be addressed, there was no rush, there was no panic, because in fact, they were going to be guaranteed that income. Now in North America, if you're out on the farm and the tractor breaks down, the fact that you just get to your truck as soon as you can, you head into the implement dealer, or they come and deliver the necessary part, you've got to keep things moving. So there is an incentive destroying aspect to any time you hear people talk about a national guaranteed income. It robs people of incentive. In fact, it creates more poverty across the board over time. So be careful when you hear about that. And what's helping some of these farmers to try and socialize the agriculture system, whenever you hear these two words, food security, that should be an alarm bell. Look, we all want food security, but it's been proven, especially over the last 150 years, the countries that have the most food, the most abundance in their supermarkets, the most people being fed, and yes, even the most generous food banks are the ones that have a market-based economy and an entrepreneurial economy, yes, a capitalist-based economy where you can invest in your farm, you can invest in a grocery store, and this constant attack on everything to do with the private sector in the food industry, be careful. that's going to socialize the food industry. I've been and I've visited countries like Cuba that have completely socialized agriculture and food markets. The shelves are very skimpy, if not completely bare. Food costs are high. Lineups for bread, as I found when I went to Ukraine back in the 90s, don't fall prey to those who are talking about socializing farming, national guaranteed income, and food security. That should set off alarm bells. In terms of letting markets bring the best products at the cheapest price, amazing what's happening in Alberta. You have a premier there that is, like most people, tired of her constituents being told they're going to have to wait 3 months, 6 months, a year for an MRI. I was recently in the United States, had a very minor medical issue there, and had the ability to get an x-ray and an MRI the very same day that I walked into that clinic. And I paid cash. I didn't even put it on my insurance. The whole thing cost me $600. That's within the American system for x-rays and MRI, same day, and a visit with the doctor. So what they're experimenting with in Alberta is they're saying, we're going to make some of these MRIs, if a private sector operation wants in fact to purchase an MRI clinic and charge people for coming, as long as, and this is very important, as long as nothing's being taken away from the public system, what will happen is those people who want to pay, let's say, $1,000 for an MRI, they step out of the public line. That means I, who am standing in the public line, I advance one person quicker up that line. So if 100 people in my city decide they want to pay for an MRI, and there's still the same amount of MRIs that were there beforehand, so nothing's being reduced, that's 100 people out of the line. I move up faster in the public line. So as long as you're guaranteed that the present level of service is not going to be reduced, that availability will not be reduced but enhanced, then why should we not allow various alternate ways to get certain services? Canada is the only democratic country in the world that does not allow some kind of choice in the type of service you want, the type of plan you want, and Canada has the longest lineups among those in the democratic world. Wake up, folks, give your heads a shake. Underlining this is a basic philosophy of envy, and it's what actually underlines socialism. There was an experiment done, you can check this up, go to chat and they'll find you where it was, in Harvard University, where a class was presented with this proposition. They were told to imagine that they all worked for a certain company. There were about 50 students in the class. They all worked for a certain company. And the CEO of the company came in one day and said, I've got a great announcement. Everybody's getting a wage because of last year's performance. We've got certain profits. Everybody's getting a wage increase. Everybody's going to get a bonus. And that sounds like good news. He said, now just keep in mind, some people's bonuses, the bonus they get, are going to be larger than another person, but everybody's getting an increase. And so you have a choice. We bring in, everybody gets an increase, but some may be more of an increase than others, or nobody gets an increase. Do you know what? Here's a scary thing, folks. The majority of those students voted then that nobody gets an increase, if it meant some people were going to get more of an increase than others. That is the basic root of socialism. It's based on envy. It's not based on merit. And beware of it, folks. And let's see what happens as they work at these things in healthcare in Alberta. The very purpose of having provinces where you can have constitutionally, you can have different programs. Other provinces can watch, and if they see something that works, then they can adopt it for the good of their citizens. Let's take a look at what's happening there. Now, Prime Minister Carney is openly musing. He's sort of saying in almost a distracted way he might be paying a visit to the United States, being very casual about it. That's the negotiating style he's chosen to take. That more power to him. Let's see if that works. But if I could just give Prime Minister Carney some advice here. When and if you do go to the United States, can you please, you're going to have to explain, I'm just giving you the heads up, why you are so vigorously not just approving, but pursuing increased relationship with China. China, which has a horrific record on so many fronts. Not that we shouldn't be dealing with them at all. Of course we should. I believe in trade between citizens and between businesses. But with the open arms that Canada is rushing to China, meanwhile, at the same time, where representatives from Taiwan are saying, what's Canada doing? They're giving more power and strength and approval to China, which is threatening to invade us here in Taiwan if they have the slightest opportunity. So, Prime Minister Carney, get ready to explain to the Americans what type of relationship you are choosing with China. And also, you're going to have to explain why you would be dropping any pursuit of, for our military and for our Air Force, the pursuit and the acquisition of the F-35s, the most sophisticated fighter aircraft in the world today. We've been pursuing that. Liberals and conservative governments have been pursuing that contract for years. And now we're going after some jets made in Sweden. Look, I like Volvos, I like Lego. Are we really doing the right thing? Are we moving away from a network where our F-35s can be aligned with the F-35s that also protect the southern part of our great continent? Let's really do what's best for Canadians here and not just always have our nose out of joint because we just don't like Americans. By the way, I've just crossed the border again recently. No problem at all. Friendly at the borders. They asked where I was going. I told them. They asked when I was coming back. I said, not quite sure. And I gave them a month. I said, it might be in this month or that month. I don't know. No problem at all. And folks, people in the United States, as always, super friendly. Doesn't matter what tribe, what race, doesn't matter what they are. Super friendly time is what we're finding. A bit of a revelation in Canada that's just broken out. One of the top Indigenous spokespeople and storytellers of modern time, a gentleman by the name of Thomas King. He wrote a best-selling book called The Inconvenient Indian and has been a real spokesperson, I guess, calling himself First Nations and Indigenous, and speaking up on many causes. And it's now been revealed it was a First Nations group that did all of the work and the DNA work, and they found out that he is not, Thomas King, in fact, is not Indigenous at all. He's 82 years old. He says he's personally devastated. He always thought he was First Nations. He said his mother told him that his father was part Cherokee. And so he just went on that all his life. Look, I'm not attacking Thomas King, and a lot of his books, a lot of the things that he said were good and proper. Some were even right, not everything, but his points of view were well-intended. And now he's being shunned, just like Buffy St. Marie. Those of you not from Canada might not be aware of her, but a very famous woman. She also was found not to be Indigenous at all, and she's had certain awards taken away from her and titles removed. Let me just say this. If you're speaking truth in some areas, that truth may still be valid. Two things can be true at once. Thomas King may have spoken to some issues that were important and got them right. And the fact that it was proved, he says he wasn't deliberately lying, that he thought he was First Nations. Let's weigh out the things he's saying that were valid and true and put aside the things that were not. But one thing that this does really show in a very clear way is that so-called oral tradition and oral history, as opposed to written history and archaeological history, it's okay, but it shouldn't be held up to the same degree of written history and scientifically proven history. Many court cases now in Canada are being decided strictly on oral tradition, strictly on stories that people have woven down through the ages. Some of those are wonderful, some of them are valid, but let's not put the same weight on those as we might on other historical facts. That's all I'm saying. And Thomas King, I wish you all the best. And we'll just leave it there. The son of Hamas, this is a gentleman by the name of Mossab Youssef, recently interviewed in Canada. This is the son of one of the founders of Hamas. He's written a book. It was an all-time bestseller, though mainstream media hated to cover it. It came out a number of years ago, and he's been traveling the world. He's been warning people, warning governments, warning voters about Hamas, that it is a vicious death cult, that this Islamist teaching in which Hamas is found is vicious towards women, cruel towards children. They live in along the theory that any opposition at all must be killed. Of course, they want all Jews killed. They want Israel eliminated. They want Jews killed not just in Israel, but in Canada and in the United States. So here he is, the son of Hamas, and he's warning and he's saying that many politicians are being seen as useful idiots. They're being seen as useful idiots by the Palestinian cause and by Hamas, because so many politicians in Canada and the U.S. just parrot the simple-minded war cry of Hamas and other extreme Islamist killing groups, and are even getting elected on that. And Hamas thinks this is fantastic. So check that out. You won't see it on CBC. You might see it on publications like the National Post and others. Mossab Youssef, son of Hamas. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Talking about Hamas, just recently now, another 7 kilometers of tunnel have been discovered and exposed in Gaza. And what some of us have been saying for years, and CBC and CNN and other groups kind of looking down on us, we've said that billions of dollars which went into Gaza. Remember, in 2006, Israel said, you know what, we're going to get completely out of Gaza. We're going to leave it in completely to the people who claim to be so-called Palestinians, and they left them one of the most beautiful strips of territory on the Mediterranean. And of course, Hamas, the Palestinians, have turned it into a disaster zone long before October 7th. And one of the things, billions of dollars flowed from the United Nations to Gaza to help them reconstruct. Billions of dollars in cement alone for reconstruction, for highways, for buildings. And we see now, and we've been saying this for years, a huge proportion of that went into the construction of these tunnels. And now this most recent tunnel, 7 kilometers, 80 gigantic storage rooms and office rooms where Hamas can and has been directing their operations. Hostages have been held there. And what they have found is the central point of this latest 7-kilometer tunnel, right underneath the offices of the United Nations Work Relief Agency. Folks, please don't get bent out of all shape, but I've been trying to say, and many have been saying for years, the United Nations Work Relations Group, they are pro-Hamas. They are staffed by Hamas. They fund the schools that indoctrinate children into the doctrine of hate and death and killing from the age of 5. No Canadian dollars, frankly, no American dollars. Now, America has cut off UNRWA. Canada should not be giving any money to UNRWA. And the other thing about these tunnels we've been saying this is now proven, their main functions, their main weapon storage facilities are underneath schools and hospitals, which is, you want to talk about international law and international court against every Geneva Convention. Can we please get somebody in mainstream media talking about that? Or is mainstream media completely enslaved to left-leaning Islamist propaganda machines? Let's try and get the truth out on both sides. Talking about the truth, our favorite used to be girl, now woman, Greta Thunberg. You remember Greta? She travels the world on environmental causes. We used to be all kind to her when she was just a kid, and some people said a bit of a brat, but she's a grown woman now. She's in her 20s. She can be held responsible for what she's doing. And she was arrested and fined in the beautiful city of Venice for doing what? She and a large number of her followers dumping green liquid into the beautiful canals of Venice. She makes the point that it's not toxic. Oh, okay. So you can still completely destroy some of the most pristine, most beautiful tourist areas and areas for Venice's own citizens, just because you're panicking, because the world is starting to realize that your childlike screaming about the world ending very soon because of climate change, in fact, is not coming true. And she got fined, which is interesting. I think it was, you have to check the source of this, $120. $120 for polluting the canals of Venice. Little Greta Thunberg, little no longer, and she needs to be held accountable for her stupid, senseless, and reckless destruction that she's causing on the planet. I don't know if you enjoy your bowl of Campbell soup. I enjoy a bowl of that every now and then, but one of the top executives at Campbell Soup, the CEO, Martin Bally, was caught on tape, an extensive tape apparently. It's been alleged, and he's been relieved of his position. And he's trashing Campbell's soup. He's saying the soup is terrible. He's using words that I can't use here on my podcast. And the words, if it's true, he denigrates folks of indigenous background who work for him in many of the factories, and really doing a number on Campbell's soup. So we'll see what happens to their stock. He's in the soup now, and be careful what you say, folks. But before we get too righteous about only eating things that are completely 100% nutritious, very extensive polling of Gen Zs, and people sort of from 13 on up into their mid-20s. Favorite foods for a pick-me-up, favorite snack foods. Number one by far, Lay's potato chips. There you go, Lay's potato chips. And favorite drink, and we'd think, well, is it Gatorade? Is it one of these vitamin-infused clear liquids? No, favorite drink still is Dr. Pepper. And number two for Gen Z, favorite drink, still Coca-Cola, either diet or regular. Favorite place to eat, Chick-fil-A number one, McDonald's number two. By the way, I enjoy both those places, and yes, they do have on their menu some very nutritious items. In the U.S., despite the constant barrage of mainstream media also saying every economy in the world, especially the U.S., is falling, U.S. home prices are beginning to move up in a number of areas in a fairly radical way. And some of that, of course, is in Florida because people are flocking out of New York City due to the election of a communist mayor there. But also in other places, especially southward in the U.S., as people look for a little warmer climate. And three out of every four business that was interviewed is saying they are putting their business prospects in the upward mode. They are feeling a surge and looking into the new year in a positive way. You won't hear this kind of talk. We think all stats should be looked at, those that are showing challenges of affordability, but also those that are showing that some good things are happening in the economy. On the culture front, terrible news out of Weyburn, Saskatchewan, Canada. We love our hockey, and a Zamboni caught fire. Yes, a Zamboni caught fire while it was clearing the rink. In case those of you who might not be from Canada or the northern states, the Zamboni is that machine that goes up and down the ice in between periods and makes it all nice and clean. It caught fire. They had to bail out. The driver is safe. They bailed out of the arenas. They got the fire under control. So everybody can go back. And the good news they did, after extensive research, they found out the Zamboni did not catch fire because of climate change. It was other reasons. Folks, thanks for joining in with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.